and she's here. Elizabeth April, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Very excited to be here.
So good to have you. Okay, so I had been following you a little bit, or for a little bit. I had another Instagram account, and then I lost it. But I haven't really got into your work that much at the time. But I was told about you, and I'd kind of seen you around, and I was like, okay. And then recently, I started following you again, and then a few of my girlfriends and a few people were like, oh, posting these different things and sharing different things, and I'm like, oh, I remember I had her on my other Instagram, and then I started to check out all your stuff happening on YouTube, and especially how everything's happening in the world right now. It was just like, okay, shit, this is really cool. I want to pay attention. So welcome, and I'm so excited to have you here to drop
Yeah,
some of your goods on the world.
absolutely. I mean, this is the time, to get together, to collaborate, to activate light codes. I think humanity is ready. So
Mm,
it's great that, we're stepping up and we're helping people understand their truth, you know.
mm, for sure. Well, why don't you kind of take us back to the beginning, because you got probably one of the most interesting stories that I've looked into. So walk us through that. Take us back as far as you want, and whatever comes to you as being like the most interesting part of your journey.
Yeah, so there's a lot. Even though I'm only 27 right now, there's definitely a lot of aspects of my journey to get here. I would say one aspect of my journey to get here that I feel really called to share is actually my abduction experiences in childhood. So between the ages of 4 years old and 13 years old, I was
Mhm.
abducted about 6 times. I was abducted by the Galactic Federation, but specifically by the Greys. And they took me on board their ship and they actually put me into like school. I call it Earth School.
Mhm.
And they took me into training and they taught me all about quantum physics, vibrational frequency, consciousness, plants, animals, the planet, how to deal with humans. They taught us about all of that. I wasn't the only one on these ships either. Now, I grew up and I had extrasensory abilities. So I was very psychic. I could see everyone's auras, chakras, ghosts and spirits, as a kid. And then, I really shut it all down around the age of 10. I just wanted to fit in. And at 16, through a depression, through a lot of anxiety, which I think a lot of starseeds experience, through the lowest of the low, the bottom of the pit, I ended up having my first ever past life regression. And that really woke me up to the concept of reincarnation. This is not our
Mhm.
first rodeo, which really validated how I was feeling. And it also introduced me to the fact that time is simultaneous. So at 16 years old, I was able to experience 5 entire past lives. That was mind blowing to me. And if that's possible, if we can in the present moment experience the past, then it's possible that we can in the present moment experience the future. So I had my kind of reawakening at 16. At 18 years old, I had my first ever conscious abduction experience. And I call it conscious abduction because I was fully aware, like it was burned into my memory, that experience. And that opened me up to the world of aliens consciously, that not only do past lifetimes on this planet exist, but past lifetimes off this planet exist. And at that time, I started giving whoever would listen to me past life regressions, and I would take them into many lifetimes, both on and off this planet in a variety of different incarnations, which allowed me as an objective observer to take a look at the different lessons and the different even jobs that these interdimensional beings have, and kind of taking a look at the universal flow as a whole. And it wasn't until 24 years old where I had my first quantum hypnosis regression session. And it was in there where I actually wanted to find out why I couldn't remember most of my childhood. And turns out it was, the memory or the blocked memories of all of the abductions. And that once again kind of blew open my world to, the fact that I've been a part of, I don't know if it's a program or the hybridization, or if it's just a part of consciousness awakening, the planet. But I've been a part of this my whole life, and I'm so lucky to, at such a young age, remember a lot of my past lifetimes and my mission and my purpose here on this planet now.
Okay. Wow. All right. So that's I'm sure you're used to it, but that's a lot for people, right? That must, I
Yeah.
mean,
Is it?
that's,
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I love it, but I'm like hearing that, it's like, okay. All right. So growing up, how hard was that when you knew you had something inside? Like you knew, and every kids, you know, they all have their different things. You know, you have that intuition of certain things is right or wrong, but we don't know. We don't know what that thing is because we're scared or whatever. You know, we're programmed into the system. What was that like for you when you think it's normal? You're getting these signs, and then did you try and communicate that to the other kids? Like, how hard was that at like
Yeah.
dealing with that?
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, I would go over to, for example, my friend's house at the age of 8, and I'd be like, "Oh, it's so nice that your grandpa's here visiting." And she's like, "Well, what do you mean? My grandpa passed away 4 years ago, right?" And I'm like, "Well, he's in the living room, you know?"
Yeah.
So it was difficult because probably around the age of like 8, 9, 10, I had no idea that, me sitting down and making my friend sit down on a pillow and saying, if you close your eyes and concentrate hard enough, you can levitate. I didn't know that that was odd. I didn't know that that was different, right? But around the age of 8, 9, 10, I started to notice that my friends were like, no, 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 you're not having that experience because I don't see that. And this guy doesn't see that. And she doesn't see that either. And at a certain point in time, I got bullied. And the main point of bullying was, you're making all of this up, you're a liar, and you're making it up for attention. And I'm actually super blessed that I had that experience at such a young age, because I still get comments on YouTube saying, you're making all this up for attention, right?
Yeah.
And so it allowed me to deal with that kind of criticism, and also the discernment between what is real and what is an illusion, and who's with me in my reality, kind of thing, right? And the funny thing is, if I was going to make up anything for attention, it definitely wouldn't be the belief in aliens, because that is not a well celebrated trait in a human being, is to
Yeah.
believe in flying saucers and interdimensional beings. So I would make up something way more cool than that if I was going to make something up. So I think that's funny as well.
Mm. What was the experience like? Is it like what people see or we think in movies, or is it completely different? Like, I mean, I, we have this, we see pictures and stuff in movies, and we kind of get an idea, but what's it really like? Is that close or is it different?
I think everyone experiences or perceives those other realities in different ways. And I experience many different aspects of this reality in different ways. So, it's different for me to experience a glitch in time than it is for me to experience, an interdimensional being walking in the room. But because I'm a very visual channeler, and everything that I know to be true, I've seen in a visual, oddly enough. um, for me, the experience is almost like a dream, right? So every time I close my eyes, I open my third eye. Like I said, every channeler, every human being is different. We all have these abilities. But for me, it's, I close my eyes, physical eyes, I open my third eye, and that's when I start seeing energies and auras and ghosts and spirits and interdimensionals kind of hanging around. And the way that I see it in my mind's eye or my third eye is like a dream. It's kind of like a dreamlike state, because it's tangible, it's there, you can see it clearly, but it's almost like you can't touch it physically. So most of the work that I do and most of the beings that I communicate with are in other dimensions, other realities, and like other vibrational frequencies. Because to be honest, this third dimension density is a little bit too dense. It's too heavy for most of the higher vibrational beings who want to help us. That's why it's extremely difficult for them to actually be here in the physical flesh, because they can't hold their form long enough in this density. And eventually, as we raise the vibration on the planet, it's going to be a lot easier for these beings to actually come down. But when people are like, why don't they just come here? Why don't they just pop into my living room? It's actually not that easy. And we kind of have to meet them halfway in their vibration by raising our vibration. And that's kind of, what I've really centered my mission around. It would be, helping others to raise their vibration but only through remembering who you really are. I believe that we're all psychic. I believe that we're all hybrids. I believe that we all have interdimensional DNA within us. And I believe that everything that I channel for humanity is just a message that humanity already has. I'm just reminding them of what they already have. And that's why in a lot of senses, you know, it has nothing to do with me, but I'm glad that I can be as grounded as I am and go as far as I go, so that humans, I don't know, I don't want to call it like accept me, but yeah, you know, I can connect with other human beings because I'm not, you know, some crazy tattooed, pierced, you know, pink haired, shaved head alien. And I, you know, sometimes I'd love to just walk around looking like an alien on this planet, but I know that I've conformed myself in a way to bring other humans in, saying, I'm not intimidating, I'm just like you know, in that remembrance process.
Oh, it's this is so cool to talk about, you know, because obviously it takes an open mind, and I feel in my life I've become so much more open-minded, and my energy has changed so much, and a lot more of these conversations start to happen. That's how it works, right? You attract more people into your
Yeah.
life, and I just love the idea that what we see around us isn't what we think it is. I love that. And I love the unknown. And it's exciting. Some people get so scared of that.
Yeah.
And I love exploring this stuff. So as far as, okay, I got to go into the alien abduction, what was your takeaway from that? From like your main, like the one where you actually physically went away? Like what did you come back with? Like what was something that you were like, okay, this is what I got from that? Or was it just a
Yeah.
combination of different things?
So the abductions between the age of 4 and 13 were all physical. They took me in the physical. And my biggest takeaway from remembering all of those when I was 24 through the hypnosis regression was, oh, this is why I understand quantum physics and I've never picked up a physics book. You know what I mean? This is
Yeah.
why I understand, you know, the greater purpose of humanity. The very sole purpose of the abduction at 18 it was actually a very scary abduction experience, by some beings who weren't very loving, you know, and I wasn't used to
Mm-hmm.
that. But there's a huge reason for that. Two things in my own life. One is it was meant to wake me up to the possibility that aliens do indeed exist and they're here. And after that, you know, abduction experience at 18, I started having very vivid flashback and very vivid recall to myself as different interdimensional beings in other lifetimes, just like I was having flashbacks of past lifetimes after my past life regression, right? Like that remembrance train, all of the dots started linking together. So right before my abduction at 18, you know, I was astral traveling, lucid dreaming, I was practicing telepathy, I was, you know, psychically channeling information, but I wasn't communicating, or at least I didn't think, with interdimensionals. And then after that, that's when it blew open my whole reality to say, wow, there's actually a bigger, wider universe out there. And then the second reason why that needed to happen at 18 is it's so funny, I needed to have a fear-based abduction experience for me to hold space and compassion for all of the humans out there who have abduction experiences, who are very fear-based abduction experiences, because 99.99% of all of my experiences have been really positive. But I also feel like I'm very good at transmuting what could be perceived as negative, right? Like even that fear-based abduction at 18, like they chipped me, they tracked me. It was really scary. I was scared to astral travel because I thought they were going to come into my body. Like it was really wild. But once again, I'm so appreciative of it, and it's so beautiful. And it allows me to have that compassion for other humans who are scared and removed and not fully understanding why they're being abducted or why they're having sightings. Luckily nowadays, you know, I have a ton of people who are all seeing the positive aspects of abduction, and they're all kind of remembering their own psychic abilities after those kind of experiences.
Mm. How do you deal with the ignorant people of the world? Like, how do you deal with the haters and stuff? Like, because I mean, everybody has them to a degree as you grow a business or, you know, anything.
Mm-hmm.
But for yourself, there's a lot of ignorant people out there, and I guess, I mean, it's all they know. How do you keep such a positive attitude? Like, how have you dealt with that through all this time?
Hmm. Yeah, I think at first it was really difficult, especially like 18, 19, 20. I was just waking up to everything. And I was trying to explain to my parents that I was an alien ambassador that came to the planet to do a mission, and that was really difficult because I just wanted to tell everyone I knew everything that I was receiving, because it was just so visceral and so real and just resonated and made me such a happy person understanding the bigger picture. So I figured it would have the same effect on everyone else. Turns out not everyone was ready for that extent of the information. So yeah, so at first it was quite difficult to integrate, and I was really affected by the hate online because I think I was still grappling with my own reality and understanding what is the truth, what is not. And so I was still being affected by the outside. Now it's so beautiful. I have an assistant of mine who moderates all my YouTube videos, live videos, and she'll tell me, she's like, oh, you had a lot of haters at the beginning of this video. But then she said halfway through, they all of a sudden stopped trolling, right? The live comments. And then by the end of it, they're like, oh yeah, good point. Oh yeah, I totally get that. So within an
Yeah.
hour-long video, I'm actually flipping these trolls and flipping these haters around. And I don't do that always. But I have so much love and so much compassion for those haters. And a part of me knows that they found that video, or they found me, or I came across their path because deep down within their soul, they're ready for that resonation. But I'm pushing their old limiting beliefs, right? And a
Mm.
lot of Christians, a lot of Bible thumpers, a lot of Christians, they really just have this profound hatred for what I'm putting out there. And I just have so much love reflected back at them. And eventually they're going to find their own truth. And I'm just glad that I was a part of their journey.
It's amazing the love that you radiate when you speak on your YouTube, though, like when you answer questions. Like, it's it's incredible. Like,
Oh,
honestly, you have this energy, and I can see how you can flip people like that, because it's like, what am I hating on here? All they're seeing is something in themselves. That's all haters are. They see a reflection of
yeah,
something they're not doing, or there's like and it's like they just need more love, and you just
yeah,
shower them with love, and all of a sudden they switch.
yeah,
And
exactly.
some of the comments on YouTube, it's like, I've seen over the years, it's like the scum of the earth comments. Like, it's like, wow, like, wow, it's so dark, but it's at the same time, it's like those people are the ones that need the light the most.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And once again, I'm just happy that they came into my frequency. I'm
Yeah.
happy to invite those people in, because I was once in a dark place. I was once pissed off at the world. I was once seeking answers. I once hated people who were just authentically happy because I wasn't happy myself. Like, I have so much compassion,
Mm.
for those individuals.
So walk us through what's going on right now, because I know I've seen your videos and I love watching them, and a lot of people listening have, but for those that haven't, like, what's your take right now? What's going on? Like, walk us through that a little bit.
Oh my goodness, it's huge. So the biggest thing is I could literally talk about every element of what's currently happening in the world. But I'm not going to, because I'm not going to get caught up in the polarity,
Mm.
right? Like, everyone has all the questions like, should we take a vaccine? Is Trump a good guy or a bad guy? Does Q exist? Like, all these, is this like a giant conspiracy? And I'll talk about some of that stuff. But once again, getting caught up in the polarity, I mean, I'm not serving anyone if I do that. So ultimately, what I want to say is that this has been a plan for a very long time. And what's happening right now has needed to happen for a very long time. We've been living in a very old, archaic reality, a very old and limited density matrix system. And we need to go through a period in time where we're collapsing everything. Now, I've known this since at least 2010, since I had that kind of alien awakening, that this needed to happen. I'm so excited that it's happening, you know,
Yeah.
finally, that we have this collapse. So ultimately, there's been a battle of polarities between low vibrational frequencies and high vibrational frequencies on this planet since the dawning of humanity. And we're now finally seeing the clashing and the collapse of the low, old vibrational frequency. And we're finally seeing that 99%, the rest of the world, rise and step into their own power and question the matrix system. We've all been disillusioned. We've all been put under the spell. And now it's the time when things get really bad where we actually start to question things. And I honestly, you know, I don't really have an opinion on one side or the other, but I know for a fact that we needed to have Trump, just as he is in the presidency, to shake things up
Yeah.
and also to create such a polarity rift, where people are either completely removing themselves from one side or another, or they're getting so engrossed in one side or another, they create that identity, then that identity collapses, and then they make way for that ego death and that rebirth, right? We have to go through these really pivotal and low points, not only globally, but individually, in order to transmute. And that's all we're going through right now. We're going through this huge transmutation process from a low vibration into a higher vibration, and people are coming online at this time. Huge awakening. This is the greatest awakening that we've seen on this planet since ancient Lemuria and ancient Atlantis.
Yeah, I agree. When this has all happened, I felt this wave of energy come into me, like a call to step up. Like it was almost like I was in the trance sleeping before. And then during this, I felt, I guess society, a lot of people tell you like you're supposed to feel bad or something. And I don't feel bad. I feel empowered. I feel like this
Yeah.
is time, it's game time. It's time to step up and do what we can and lead and whatever that is. And that's what I love about this situation is that you have to see further like what's actually going on, and there's a lot of positives. There's a lot of opportunity too. There's a lot of
Yeah.
opportunity for people out there, even to reinvent yourself, to do whatever you wanted to do, or you know, it's this stuff that it's like, now if it's time to slow down, slow down. If it's time to put the foot on the gas with the business, it's time to do
Yeah.
that, you know. and
Yeah.
and I think it's great for that. um okay, so I've been following Q is something that I recently have been following a little bit, and it's interesting. So, and I've been kind of diving into some of this stuff about the darkness. I've heard you talk about it. I've heard other people, I've heard it a lot. What is that? When is this 3 days of darkness or the 7 days or all of that supposed to happen? And maybe walk us through that, because I know a lot of people have heard this and you see it pop up a lot, but okay,
Mhm.
what's the deal?
Cool. Yeah. So I was originally, and I have to let people know, especially if you haven't seen my content, that like everything that I know has been channeled to me. So I don't read books. I don't watch other channelers. I don't take a look at what the doctors are saying. Like I really remove myself from external research within my field anyway. So I just have to let people know that. So once again, take it or leave it. Doesn't mean it's the truth. It just means it's a perspective.
Yeah.
So this concept of 3 days and 3 nights of darkness first came to me from the Galactic Federation of Light back in 2011 when I had my first meeting with them. And yeah, and they told me all about the 144,000, these light warrior ambassadors that was supposed to come to the planet to raise the vibration. They told us all about the 3 days and 3 nights of darkness. They told us all about reptilians who think that this planet is theirs, and technically it kind of is. And, you know, it just these pieces upon pieces, just all kind of being put together at this time. So I didn't really know what this 3 days and 3 nights of darkness was. They told me that back in 2011, 2012. Then it wasn't until 2016, 2017 when they told me again, and I have meetings with them almost every month. So they finally, a couple years later, told me some more information. They told me that, or they showed me an image of this giant, it kind of looked like a giant laser hitting the planet, right? And I saw it and I'm like, what? Like, what is this? Like, is this an alien invasion? Is this a government technology? Like, what's going on, right? And they said, no, this is actually a giant solar flare that is meant to hit your planet. Actually, this was more recent. I think this was probably 2018, 2019 when they told me that about the solar flare. And they specifically showed me that the solar flare was meant to hit the top of Russia, because they showed me the globe and it was just Russia for whatever reason. And so they said that this solar flare was meant to happen. They said that they had the technology to actually prevent the solar flare from hitting the Earth. And they said that the solar flare was actually supposed to wipe out the entire electrical grid, um, of the planet. And I asked them a question, I'm like, is it supposed to be only the continent of Russia? Is it going to affect the entire world? Like, what's going to happen? And that's it. That's all they told me. Oh yeah, they also said it was 60% likely to happen, which, there's many different probabilities in the future. But they said 60%. That's why they told me back then to tell humanity. They said, we want you to tell humanity so that you can tell humanity to get prepared, right? So I've been repping, have supplies, have, 3 months of food, have water, have the things that you need. And like I said, that they basically connected that to be the 3 days and 3 nights of darkness. And they told me that during this time, so I said, what should we do? Should we go? Should we bug out? Should we what should we do during that time? And they said, meditate, go within, remove yourself from all distraction, be prepared. But it's not a time to feel stress. It's not a time to feel worry. It's a time to literally sit and fast and meditate and go within and raise your vibration. And they also told me that during this wave, they almost they kind of gave me some pieces of this back in 2012. They said this electromagnetic wave was going to hit the planet, and it sounds really biblical, but I don't really know the Bible too well. But this wave was going to hit the planet, and in a way, the wave was going to be, they said, intelligent and of a very high vibrational frequency, and it was basically going to tip the scales into the fifth dimension frequency or a higher vibration on the planet. They also told me that whoever didn't meet the vibrational frequency of the wave was going to go somewhere. So I'm like, what? Are they going to die? Is there going to be a mass, whatever? Now, when they told me this back in 2012, that, when this wave hits and the people who are not awakened aren't going to kind of go to this new reality or new realm, I thought all my friends, all my family members, no one's going to come with me. I'm the only one who's talking about this stuff. But now, fast forward to 2020, if you said, yeah, this wave is going to hit and it's going to basically bring people to a new vibration, I would say the majority of the people that I know are going to be going, 80, 90%. So it's just very interesting. That's what I know. So they told me back in 2018, 19, that this solar flare was going to hit. And I did a video on it too. And they said that it was going to hit in 2021. That's what they told me, which is really interesting. Recently, they were saying, the Galactic Federation was saying that there could potentially be a blackout during this time. And they said that if there was a blackout during this time, it would make up for, or it would allow humanity as a whole to learn the lesson that we would have learned during the blackout of the solar flare in 2021. So basically, they said there's only going to be one blackout, and it's either going to be now at this time. They never gave me a timeline, or it's going to be in 2021 as well. Yeah, so that's what I know.
How does that get overwhelming, getting all this information, all this intel, and not knowing whether it's literal or if it's supposed to happen or when it's happening? How do you deal with all of that? Or is it kind of channeled in a way where it's organized and you can, because I'm just imagining myself wow, you're getting these messages that you don't know if they're going to be true, or you don't know if they actually mean what they're literal, or is it how do you deal with that? Because that's a crazy amount of information that
Yeah. I mean, I don't really, I never tell people that I make predictions. I'm not that kind of channeler, like I said,
Yeah.
I'm just here to kind of, help people remember. But if I do get, messages, and I've gotten messages about a giant Arctic ice shelf breaking off, and then a week later it happened. And then I got the message of a giant volcano erupting. And then 2 weeks later it happened in Hawaii or what have you. And so, yeah, so I get the messages, I put them out there objectively. People can take them or leave them. And I really try not to align myself to timelines, because it's really based on us as a collective and our own free will. There's an infinite number of possibilities and timelines out there. And I would say that sometimes it is difficult for these beings to give me pieces of the information, and for me to not really know what this is referring to.
Mm.
And then years later, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. You were giving me this all along. And now I really am starting to see that bigger, fuller picture, and everything's really starting to make sense. And I just feel so blessed that I'm in this position to be able to observe objectively all of this information and be the conduit for humanity.
Have you seen a big influx of people following you during all this stuff? Like, have you seen it grow a lot from people just curious about life, a lot more open-minded now?
Yeah, super interesting. So, my one video, it was a direct channeling from the Galactic Federation and the Palladian Security Council. Now, I talk to this Palladian Security Council every single month for the past however many years, since like 2011. So
Yeah.
it's no big deal for me to talk to them. And then I just basically summarize their information, or summarize the information for humanity, and I put them out in videos. So I was talking about 3D, 5D. I was talking about the Mandela effect. I was talking about simultaneous time and glitches in the matrix years and years ago. And then I actually relay verbatim, word for word, what the Galactic Federation has to say. And that video gets like 150,000 views,
Yeah.
when typically my videos used to get like 1,000 or 2,000 views. And it's kind of comical for me, because I'm like, nothing's new, just the same, same old day, same old information. But it really feels like people are coming online and they're ready. And I, once again, I mean, if they found my information and they resonated with it, they're becoming that master, they're becoming that psychic, they're becoming that teacher and that channeler themselves. And it's a very exciting time.
It is. I think it's a great time for people to open up and really question everything, right? So I love it. So can you, I know that we talk about Galactic Federation, like, cause I know what it is. I've heard you talk about it. Can you just explain what that is to people? Cause people are probably like, all right, what is this? Can
Yeah,
you
for sure.
talk about that, and maybe what steps people can do? I'm just kind of going through some questions and sort of asking them in how they pertain to this, like the steps they can do to connect with them if they
For
can.
sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So ultimately, the Galactic Federation is basically like a giant government system for the universe. So there are there's infinite numbers of councils within the Galactic Federation, and they all deal with different aspects of, this reality and this universe. And there's different kind of stations or motherships set up in each galaxy. There's just like, it's so expansive. They're the good guys, basically, the good guys. And they just abide by the universal law. And that's kind of, they don't make up rules or regulations, they just abide by that, and help everyone in the universe abide by it. So that's basically who the Galactic Federation are. I specifically communicate, because there's so many infinite number of beings in there, I specifically communicate with the Greys, who are a part of the hybrid project on the planet, and they tell me all about the hybrid project, which is nice. And then the other aspect is the Palladian Security Council, and they tell me all about, what does humanity need to know? What are we going through? Any cataclysms, any things that people need to be prepared for, those kind of things. So yeah, it's very interesting. And then how people can connect with them. Most likely, if you have connected with my information or the information that's channeled through me, you're a part of the Galactic Federation. If you're here right now, you're a part of this, right? And so ultimately, you've got a superhighway connector within you, whether that be, an etheric chip that was planted in you from childhood, or if that's just your soul that is directly connected to them. The number one thing that people can do is raise your vibration, because they are at a very high vibration. And the lower the vibration you are, the more separate you are from them, because they are just reflections of pure source. So raise your vibration. And then the second thing is have a very clear intention of what you want. If you want to connect with them, set that intention, manifest it, put it there in the universe, but don't attach yourself to any sort of timelines or outcome or expectations, because that attachment will also lower your vibration. So a good example of this is if you're like, well, I'm only going to love myself once I hear from the Galactic Federation, or I'm only going to believe that I'm psychic once I hear back from them. Oh no, they're not talking back to me, and that's just a whole paradigm that we get caught up in. It's like every single vibration that you emit towards them, they can feel. Right. And it's just going to take time for you to acclimate and integrate their vibration into you for you to have a full on conversation. And maybe your full on conversation is tinglies in your body, or having like a hot flash, or getting a headache. Everyone has their own methods of communication, and it's not always as clear as you and I talking right here.
Interesting. Wow. How, when do you, how do you know, like, are they, is it like, okay, Elizabeth, it's time to channel, or when is it when you close your eyes? Like, are they, can you get anything right now from them? Is there any messages that we can have, anything like that?
Yeah, okay,
I know
cool.
maybe it's a silly
Let me
question,
just
but I'm like, how do we, how does that
no.
happen?
Yeah. Well, I'll just explain it and then I'll tap in. So, because I've been able to tap into that other reality my whole life, it's very easy for me. It literally just takes me, once again, closing my eyes, tuning into their frequency, and then just, telepathically asking them if there's any messages. I also want to say, too, that they typically always give a visual representation or a visual metaphor of the message for a group anyway. And the reason why is because it's easier for individuals to interpret the visual message than it is because people hang on to words and definitions a little bit too much. So let's just tap in. I'll just tap into the Palladian Council with the Galactic Federation and see if they have any specific messages for us right now. So one
Amazing.
second. Mhm, mhm, mhm. Okay. Okay, very interesting. Okay, so they did give me a visual of, I guess, a message that humanity needs to know right now, and I think it's pretty cool. So initially, they give me this visual of the ocean, right? It's huge, vast body of water, and just keep in mind this is all a metaphor. It's definitely not, literal. And then they're talking to me about these three steps of liberation, let's call it, okay? Ascension, liberation, 5D vibration, whatever you want to call it. But there's these three different phases that every human being on the planet is in right now. And it's really important that you're aware of what phase that you're in so that you can get a bigger picture of where you're going, okay? And so the first phase, they said, is, so imagine you, okay, stuck on an island or stuck on like stuck on land, basically. And in order to be liberated or free or, ascending, you want to be out in the ocean. You want to be in this free open space where you can go anywhere and do anything. And so they said the first step of ascension right now that people are going through is just even the thought of building the boat, the thought of getting off land, the thought of breaking free from the matrix. Oh, I'm on land. I could be in the ocean. Oh,
Mm.
I'm stuck in 3D. I could be in 5D, right? So that's a huge step, right? It's just understanding that you're not free and understanding that it's possible to be free and liberated, right? So step one that everyone's kind of going through. Now, step one of understanding that, whoa, I could build a boat and get off this land, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of breaking down, there's a lot of, just kind of the buildup of, I have to change everything in order to live my truth, right? That's huge. That's
Mm.
really scary. Step two of the ascension that everyone's kind of dealing with, we're, in one given day, you could be on all three different levels of the ascension, right? So step two is building the boat, actually gathering the materials, getting the foundations, and building the boat to freedom. So this is kind of like, yes, these are the words that come to me. Reclaiming your soul's purpose, reclaiming your mission, reclaiming, your memories, right? That's the materials to build the boat. You need to have a foundation. And the number one thing that we need to have that boat to be liberated and free is discernment between light and dark. We need to dive into the darkness just as much as we dive into the light in order to have all aspects of the boat, all pieces of the material. Okay. So the second phase is building, right? Building the boat, building your foundations for liberation. You can't just go from, the land to the ocean, right? You can't just go from 3D to 5D. It's very stark, quantum leaping. And then, of course, the last step of ascension and awakening that people are on right now is actually getting in your boat and sailing away. And what is it? What does that mean? That means sailing into the unknown. We have no idea what the fifth dimension is. We have no idea what to experience. We have no idea how our lives are going to change. We have no idea the choice that we're going to make in the next moment, or the way that the wind blows us, right? Our intuition and where we go in the next moment. So it's important, I think, for just you and the listeners to really kind of deep dive and ask themselves, what phase are you in? And understanding that no matter where you are, you're going to have to liberate yourself from what you thought you believed, or the life that you thought you were living. And the less resistance that you have, the more acceptance, the easier and more graceful your journey is going to be.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's almost like we just need to unlearn all the shit that blocked us from really being who we are. Like there's so much, and that voice inside of us gets numbed, or that feeling, because of just all the stuff that we've been conditioned to. And it's like when you start to, I love that, when you start to kind of surrender and know that you're going to be okay in the unknown, that's where I notice it in my own life too. Like things start to just flow as soon as I just go, I can't control this, and I'm okay with it. And I like the fact that I don't know. And I feel like there's a beautifulness in that, is when you just accept the unknown and stop trying to control everything.
Exactly. That's huge. That's a huge part of just going through it, and entering into that heart space and letting go of that mind space, I think is a really profound practice for everyone as well.
So where do you see, like, what the next few months, the next year, like what do you see happening? Like, what are you working on? Like, what are some stuff that people can sort of, that you can suggest that they, I don't know, they start to explore?
Exactly. So everything's up in the air right now. So once again, I don't make predictions about what's going to happen. I will give suggestions on what people can do during this time, because this is a really important time, and it's so significant and so important that I don't want people to waste it. You know what I mean? This is so important. So and it's funny. So overall, kind of the flow that I've seen is that the next 4 years, from 2020 to 2024, is supposed to be the collapse of all of the corruption, all of the imbalances within society, right? So education, economics, politics, mass media, celebrities. It's just supposed to be an ultimate collapse in the next 4 years. So I hate to say that this is just the end. This is really just the beginning for the next 4 years. After 2024, we can seriously work on rebuilding. That's at a collective global level. However, most of the people who are listening have already worked on collapsing their realities. Most likely, in the timeline that I've received is between 2016 and 2019, if you changed your job, if you changed your relationship, if you stepped into your power, if you learned your lesson, if you had an ego death during that time, then you're a teacher and you were getting prepared before the rest of the world. So this is your time to step up, okay? And help the rest of the world through this crazy time in the next 4 years. So at an individual level, everyone's now, well, not everyone, but the teachers of the world are now finally starting to step into their power. Really depending on where you are on your ascension journey, right? Phase 1, 2, or 3. You think about the boat analogy. Right now, if you've just woken up to the fact that you've been living in a matrix, first of all, welcome and congratulations for being here.
Welcome to the party.
Yeah, exactly. And these people need to work on collapse. And I'll tell you that there's many wives, and specifically females for whatever reason, but many women who have come to me saying, my husband, he's so, he's getting worse, he's drinking more. Allow him to collapse. Allow your loved ones to have an ego death. If you try and raise their vibration without them doing it themselves, it's a lose-lose for everyone. Okay.
Mm.
So you may be stuck in a family where you're in a higher vibration, like literally allow your loved ones to suffer. It sucks and it's harsh, but you were suffering during your ego death and you had nowhere or no one to turn to. And that's what's needed during that time. So depending on your phase of the ascension. So collapse everything that you thought you knew and you loved if it doesn't resonate with you anymore.
Mm.
Okay. And then second step is, gain access to the tools. I'm really against external research for other people, but at the same time, there's light codes that are being activated when you do that external research. But I would say do as much external research, whether it be your content, my content, other teachers, whatever, whoever else resonates with you, understanding that they are only reflections of your soul, but ultimately go within. This is now your time to step up, understand that you're intuitive and psychic and that you have those connections. The more you disempower yourself with others, the further away you take yourself from your own skills and abilities. And then the last thing is, once you have, understood that you're breaking through the matrix and you've broken down your old reality, then you've gained access to the tools that you need and you feel empowered and full of love and seriously happy. Then and only then is that a perfect time for you to step into your role within society and help others, but make sure that you're in an aligned place first, before you go out and help everyone else. So that's it. That's what people really need to focus on in the next couple of months. And like I said, everyone's focusing on different aspects depending on where your vibration is.
Yeah. And that's actually leading into, one of my last questions here is that it's very easy to get caught up in the evil of the world, especially there's so many theories and things, like disgusting human beings doing disgusting things, the pedophile stuff and all that stuff that just makes me just sick. And it's like you watch these documentaries, you watch these things, and then it's like, all right, well, how much do I really want to consume? Because as much as I want to know what's going on, I don't really, like, knowing that stuff isn't really going to help me become who I need to be to help. So where do you draw the line with that? Because obviously you're hearing this stuff too, and it's like fucking crazy hearing this stuff. Like, how are human beings doing this? How is this even possible? And then it's like, wait a minute, I can't get wrapped up in that. It's so easy to go down the rabbit hole, right? How do you
Yeah.
balance all that stuff?
Well, you know what? Going into I call it spiraling or going down the hole, right? The rabbit hole. It's actually really needed and really important, because
Okay.
after you kind of realize that we're in an illusion and a matrix, you need to realize what the truth is. And to be honest, the truth of this matrix reality is really fucking dark.
Yeah.
It's really dark, right? And so I just want to validate that I was told years and years ago, back in 2012, from the Galactic Federation, there's reptilians here, they're shapeshifters, they're pretending to be humans, they are controlling, every aspect of the higher up of humanity. And yeah, and they do, have blood and sex rituals with kids, and they do eat babies, and they do, that's literally how they survive, and that's also how they raise their vibration. So yeah, and they're very vengeful and all of that. Not all reptilians, but the ones who have been here definitely are. So all that stuff is completely true.
Yeah.
And and yeah, there's humans who have gotten wrapped up in that. But we need to realize that the top of the pyramid has been other interdimensional beings posing as human beings. So there should never be a loss of faith within humanity with what's going on. There should be a realization of the truth of what's really going on. So I went down the rabbit hole for years and years, really figuring out and kind of going to military bases astrally and remote viewing it and seeing what was the truth. And
Yeah.
it's pretty messed up out there. But after all of that, educate yourself, like you mentioned. Don't get sucked into the knowledge. There's an aspect of you that is actually not only just healing, but also coming full circle with the information. I actually think that it's just as bad to get wrapped up in the darkness as it is to get wrapped up in the light.
Mm.
All light, all love, all
Yeah.
butterflies and rainbows, all the time. No,
Yeah.
we're not living in that reality. And you're completely disillusioning yourself by thinking that, right?
Yeah.
So we need to, in order to become a master of this reality, of this matrix, we need to be able to see both light and darkness objectively, rise above it, rise above the polarity, then dabble. You're still a human. You still have to pay your bills. You still have to answer that email. You're still going to have shitty days. You're going to still have that pain in your foot or whatever you're dealing with, but dabble with it, right? Look at it objectively. Do not get sucked into it. Understand that it's an element of your reality. Rise above it, transmute it, become the master, right? Whether you're all light, or all dark, you're still putting yourself down and you're still limiting your capabilities. So I always say, have the information, be informed. Don't be ignorant by any means. Be informed by both ends of the scale. But then discern for yourself where you want to sit. And the ultimate place to sit is in 0 point. It's in neutrality. It's above it all. And then you can play. You can become the programmer of this reality, not just the character.
I love it. Oh, this has been so good. Time flies as always.
Yeah.
Man, I could talk about this stuff all day. I always wrap things up with one final question, and it's involving adversity. And obviously there's a lot of ways you can take it, but what is one lesson that adversity has taught you that the audience can walk away with today?
Ooh, this is good. Okay. There's so many lessons. Oh man, there's so many lessons. Okay, I would say the one thing is it's allowed me to stand in my power and understand that by me just being authentically who I am, I'm helping humanity the most despite the adversity, right? And that's what everyone really needs to step into, really embrace your quirkiness, embrace your weirdness, embrace your weird, starseed soul, and understand that you're here for a reason, and you're here on one of the most epic times that this earth has to offer. And so embrace the adversity and understand that you are different for a reason.
I love it. Oh, that's amazing. Where can we all check you out? And everybody, I highly suggest that you go check out Elizabeth. She's got amazing content. We're going to have it all in the show notes, but where can we find you? Where's the best spots?
Yeah, for sure. So honestly, just Googling Elizabeth April, you'll find all the things, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok now, iRoll. But YouTube, if you really want to binge watch, hours, like hundreds of hours of content, I've got it on YouTube. So that's the number one place that I would recommend, just Elizabeth April on all platforms.
Yeah, and I highly suggest you guys subscribe to her channel and become a member. You have a membership there, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And, because this work, it's important, and and I know people appreciate it, and I love what you're doing, and it takes a lot of courage as well to do what you're doing. So I respect it a lot. So again, thank you for coming and sharing your light with us and shining that amazing vibration onto the world with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Elizabeth April, everybody.